Well, hello there, and welcome to episode 68 of the Rock Podcast. For those about the pod, we salute you. In this episode, we've got rock news in What's Caught Your Eye, Bri. We've got new releases from Mr. Big, The Commoners, and The End Machine. It's the A to Z of rock, and we're coming towards the end, and we're at the letter U. So, fingers crossed for us. I think that's it, Brian, isn't it? Without further ado, here he is, the man in the Motorhead t-shirt. He's not fast. He's not Eddie. He's just Brian. Here he is. How's Brian? How you doing, mate?
I'm very well, mate. Born to lose, win to... Aye.
Born to lose, live to win.
There you go. That's it. There.
Yes, yeah. And I'm very, very well. Thanks for asking. So...
How are you?
That's it. Yeah, I'm doing fine. Seriously. I've got a bit of a bad knee. And a bad hip, but apart from that, I think it's old age creeping up on me. But apart from that, I'm fine. So before we get onto the news, I need to give you my because we never speak between these episodes, do we? You don't really like each other that much. We're like those bands who go off in separate tour buses, really in opposite directions. We're the Dave Lee Roth and Eddie Van Halen of the podcast world.
Okay.
I'm joking. Of course we do. I went to see AC/DC at Wembley.
That's why you did your knee in. That's why you did. You were doing your Angus duck walk, weren't you?
Well, I'll come on to a story about that in a minute, actually, if you push me on it. But AC/DC at Wembley. It was great on the whole.
Ooh, controversial.
Yeah, I mean, I've read a few reviews of it, and I had to agree to some degree with what's been said about AC/DC. Basically, it's the Brian and Angus show these days. Angus was on fine form in his blue schoolboy outfit, 69 years old, still going strong, as you say, duck walking and doing his Dying Flyer during Let There Be Rock and so on. A slightly overlong Let There Be Rock, if I'm honest with you, but still good as the same. 21 songs, as we discussed, a kind of rough split between the Bon and the Brian era. Brian Johnson's voice sort of held up. I think most people sang along with most of the songs, which probably helped. But yeah, it was all in all pretty good. Wembley Stadium has got that sort of, like most stadiums, has got a sort of a fairly kind of clinical feel about it when it comes to gigs. The sound does bounce around a little bit, but it was nice and loud. We were quite close to the front, thanks to my wife and her ticket buying prowess. So
were you standing or seats?
We had seats, but everyone stood up where we were.
Right.
Which is like, old school. I mean, first chord of what they begin with, "If you want blood, you got it." We were up, and it was great. It was great. Nice way to book it. I saw AC/DC first time in 1981. I don't think I'll see them again. I don't think they'll tour the UK again, unfortunately. But nice way to kind of, bookend their career as far as I was concerned, of course. So, all good. All good. It's kind of slightly unreal when they come on in broad daylight.
Yeah.
And the lights only really kick in, about 3/4 of the way into the set, but, you can't do anything about, the movement of the sun around the earth. Because does the sun rotate? No, I don't. Of course I know we rotate around the round the sun. Anyway, enough of those that astronomy lesson. It's all good. How about you? What's happening in your world? Any gigs?
Yeah, I went to see in Edinburgh at the moment. They where they have the Edinburgh tattoo. So they set everything up just right outside in the forecourt of Edinburgh Castle. So that's all set up, and what they do every year now is they have an outdoor concert. So you'll have the Stereophonics, Tom Jones, Kylie, everybody play. Quite a few people will play. And whilst you were watching the Netherlands play England, I was watching Suede and the Manic Street Preachers. Now, Suede is a band that I've never seen before. I've always wanted to see Suede because they are the band that started Britpop. Wasn't Oasis, wasn't Blur, it was Suede. And they came on first, and you're kind of going, you think about, they came on about, oh gosh, just back of 7, Matt, and it was like broad daylight. There was lights, there was no need for any lights, and Suede just battered through their set, and they got the crowd going. The Manic Street Preachers, I have had a love affair with the Manic Street Preachers since 1991. They played Sunderland.
Nice.
They played Sunderland Poly, and they and they had their first single called Crash and Burn, and they were giving it out around the Poly.
I love that song. I love that song.
Yeah.
One of the best songs they've done, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, so they were giving that out round our student union to try and entice people to come in and watch the Manic Street Preachers. So I've seen the Manics a few times. We're going to talk about some guitar players later on the show. James Dream Bradfield is just an amazing guitar player and a great singer. And they played all of the hits. They did, A Design for Life, Motorcycle Emptiness. Went through the whole catalogue, and I've not seen them for a few years, Matt, and they just sound like a vintage wine. They're just
they sound like a vintage
wine
being poured into a glass. I like the sound of that.
Yeah,
nice, full bodied.
Yeah,
I know what you mean. They get better with age.
Yes, so,
very good. Big fans of Rush, of course.
Yes,
Nicky Wire.
Nicky Wire, yeah.
Just to backtrack a minute. So, as we've established many times, you were at university for 15 years. How far into this? I guess you must be at the end of your university life.
It was the twilight.
I was the twilight.
It was
Twilight Zone.
You kind of break it up. It was in the third trilogy.
Okay.
Yeah, it was 15 years. It was 15 years. I was in the last 5 years.
The third trimester.
Yes, I was the third.
Whatever that means.
I was in the third quarter.
Anyway, let's move on. In other news, now this is gone a bit mental. This Tenacious D. We talked about Tenacious D last time in the context of the letter T, of course.
Yeah.
The Tenacious D story has gone a bit global, really, recently. I think a lot of people will be aware of it. So they were on tour in Australia. So essentially, Tenacious D is Jack Black from School of Rock and his partner in crime, Kyle Gass. And Kyle Gass was celebrating his 64th birthday in a gig they were doing in Sydney, Australia. And it was a few days after the failed assassination attempt on Donald Trump. And he was asked to make it was really teed up for him. And when you look back on it, you think, really, Jack? But that said, he was asked to blow out his candles and make a wish. And he basically made a very disparaging comment about Donald Trump and about the assassination. And I quote, "Don't miss Trump next time," which is in front of an audience in very sensitive Australia, immediately led to an outcry. And Jack Black cancelled the tour. Kyle Gass's management company, I think, have dropped him.
Yeah.
Green Talent.
Yeah.
One comic comment, as it were, has obviously severely backfired on Kyle. And I do have some sympathy for him. I mean, we've all sort of maybe, put our foot in it a little bit over the years and said something we probably shouldn't have done. But with a global audience, and certainly, it escalated from Sydney to a global audience. Probably not the wisest thing they've ever done,
no,
or indeed said on the part of Kyle Gass. So I'm not sure what the future holds for Tenacious D or indeed Kyle Gass. Very, very sad set of circumstances, really. Thoughts, Brian?
I think it's just you've got he's a funny guy. They're on stage. I don't want to put them in the bad news parody band. Tenacious D, Jack. They are good musicians. However, they are funny guys, and there sometimes you can just make a wish and you think you're saying something funny, and then in this age of everything's recorded and everything is said, what what you think is quite funny. And to be fair, there were a few people in the audience that laughed as well too. But I think when people look at it from the outside in, and reflect on it, there's a lot of I think it was Australian ministers were saying deport Tenacious D now. And from Jack Black's point of view, he had to, in my view, he had to distance himself very, very quickly from it, because he's got movie projects, he's got his own brand, and he probably doesn't condone that kind of, he didn't say it, so therefore it's he's got to say sorry, Kyle, and Kyle's come out and he's apologized, but it's for me, it's interesting, the wording of it, where Tenacious D they cancelled the tour, Tenacious D is effectively on hold, and no more creative plans, etc. So I think it's a case of let things die down and then see if people want to listen to Tenacious D again.
Shame.
It is real shame. Good band.
However, in other news, and I applaud this by Bob Dylan, not someone we've spoken a lot about on the podcast over the years, but he has announced his UK tour. He's playing outside of London, you'll be pleased to hear, Brian. I know you're a big Bob Dylan fan. 83 years old he is now, Bob Dylan. But he's banned mobile phones at his UK tour coming up this year, which I applaud. I mean, I don't mind people kind of having the mobile phone on them, but the times when you've and we did a bit, well, many episodes ago, about do's and don'ts at gigs. Yes, and I think this is one of them. Putting your phone up and recording the entire gig, or indeed big chunks of it, is I think a little bit antisocial within the gig context, in my opinion. And people do it, and I take the odd picture, of course. And even the odd little snippet here and there, but not the whole thing. And I think he's very brave. I'm not sure how you're going to police it, but he said, in the event of an emergency, attendees can unlock their phones by going to a dedicated and signposted area intended for phone use. So you're down the front of Bob Dylan. I guess it might be seated. So you're seated and you want to, make a phone call or respond to a text or something. How are you enjoying the Bob Dylan gig? Oh, no, I'm going to have to run to the designated area. Say, yeah, good. And then run back. What songs is he playing? Run back. And so on. It could get a little bit farcical. I see where it's coming from. I see where it's coming from. Mr. Zimmerman, of course, give him his proper name. The great Bob Dylan.
Somebody who did this a few years ago, and they trailblazed a little bit on this was Jack Black, or not Jack. God, we've talked about Jack Black, Jack White from the White Stripes.
His brother.
His brother White. Is there. So Jack White, and he actually was playing in the Usher Hall, and I know people who had to do this. Is they put everybody's phones in designated locked, sort of sealed sleeves. So basically you had your phones were taken away from you, and it kind of worked out okay. You had some people were going, what happens if I get an emergency call, and blah 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 blah, and I get that, and I think there's an element of if you're if you've got responsibilities and you need to be available 24/7, then you must have your phone on you. But wouldn't it be lovely if we could get to a nice happy medium where if people had their phones at gigs, Matt, that a bit like photographers, when photographers go to a gig, they get 3 songs, they get the first 3 songs, and then they're out of the way. And wouldn't it be much nicer if you went to a concert and you said, tell you what, the first 3 songs of the gig, take as many photographs as you like, but after that, can you just put your phone away and enjoy the gig?
Yeah, I agree. But it's a bit like suggesting that all the tall people stand at the back and all the short people stand at the front. It's just not going to happen, unfortunately. Even though it's a nice idea, we don't live in utopia, which is a U we'll come on to later. Did I mention the letter U in the A to Z of rock? I think I did.
I think you did.
No, I know what you mean. But anyway, more to come on that story. And, depending on your perspective, Well done, Bob. See how
Absolutely.
that plays out. What else you got for us, Brian? Anything interesting?
Yeah. So something that I never thought we've talked about many instruments on the show, Matt, that have come up for sale. Kurt Cobain, Jimi Hendrix guitars.
Oh my
There's
God.
yeah, and
Your
literally
favourite bassist? No, my favourite bassist. Your favourite bassist is Lemmy, of course. But yeah, Paul McCartney's bass guitar and
yeah.
so on. Yes, sorry, I interrupted you.
No,
there.
no,
Go
no, you
ahead,
didn't.
my
You
friend.
didn't at all. And then I was just going to say, and anything that Joe Bonamassa seems to get his hands on, he seems to have everybody's. But one guitar that I never thought would come up for sale has come up for sale this week, which is Rory Gallagher's legendary 1961 Fender Stratocaster. Those people who know me, you know me well. Rory Gallagher has a very special place in my heart, and I think in a lot of blues rock. Anybody who's into guitar playing, a lot of people, it's that famous line from Jimi Hendrix's line, which says, "What does it feel like to be the world's greatest guitarist?" And Jimi Hendrix said, "Ask Rory Gallagher."
Yeah.
That's good. You know what I mean? You need to say no more than that. But his brother Donal has put the guitar up for sale, so it's going to go up for auction, Matt. Amongst quite a lot of other of Rory's equipment, and it's expected to sell for about 700 to £1,000,000. So and you get everybody coming out and saying, I hope somebody buys it, who will play it, and it's not going to just sit in a glass, a glass case in a billionaire's house. And the people of Cork have put together, like a GoFundMe page, and they've been trying to raise money so that the people of Cork can have the guitar. And I think earlier this week they'd got about 30 grand. So
No, nice.
yeah,
Nice.
so bless them. So you're kind of going, it's not looking good for the crowdfunding, but
How would that work in practice then? So if there's 30 of you put in £1,000 each, let's say £1,000 each, do you each get to own it for a week and then pass it on to the next person?
it's like a guitar share.
So, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I suppose it could work. Your turn. Like when you were a child, you just take the guinea pig home for the summer holidays or whatever it was from the classroom. But and I think when we were talking in pre-production,
Oh, right, okay.
yeah, during a pre-production meeting we have,
Yeah. It's a short one this episode.
there's no, I don't know how to pronounce this. Is it Michael Martin?
Michael Martin, our Taoiseach.
Michael Martin. How do you pronounce that?
He's a Taoiseach. He's the Taoiseach.
Taoiseach. He's pledged to explore. Pledged. It's a very strong word. Pledged. This is according to the Irish Times, which I occasionally dip into. He's pledged to explore ways in which the state might buy the guitar, which, as you say, is estimated. I mean, they normally go over the estimate, don't they? Up to £1,000,000. So he's going to spend public money on a guitar. I'm not sure that's going to go down well, particularly. I mean, it's a nice idea, but £1,000,000 on a guitar when there's potholes and beating up telephone boxes and stuff, and ice cream shops without any windows and everything. It's an interesting one. We'll see how that plays out. You, I guess, are not going to bid. Are you going to bid for any of the equipment, by the way? Like a pedal or a pick or something?
It was a bit like in the Bernie Marsden one where I went in and bid. I actually went in and bid for a bag of plectrums.
Oh, did you?
I did.
Do you know what they went for? A bag of plastic picks.
I went in, it was like I think the opening bid on it was maybe 25, 30 quid, Matt, and I think I ended up I put an initial bid in of around 50 quid or 55 quid, etc. And then I watched it for a bit. I'm not quite sure what I went for, like 90 quid or whatever. And I'm kind of going,
okay.
I like Bernie, but there's enough. I've got enough plectrums kicking around this flat without having paid £100 for.
That's the thing. What do you do with 100 other birdie picks? Just like look at them, put them in a glass case, I suppose. To your earlier point. Anyway, we digress. Another one of your favourites? Not Rory Gallagher, but Glenn Hughes, the self-proclaimed voice of rock, who is 73, I think he is now. He has said that he's not going to carry on beyond 80. Which, is fair enough, I suppose. 80 is very old to be still kind of treading the boards when you have the wherewithal to retire. But he's still busy, of course. We covered BCC's latest album, 5 or V. We haven't decided yet which it was. But that'd be a shame, wouldn't it, when Glenn Hughes hangs up his Fender Precision bass. Don't you think, Brian?
It's Glenn's he's a force of nature.
His teeth are, anyway. His teeth are the whitest teeth I've ever seen. Unbelievable. We saw them his teeth, saw him. We saw him at, was it Rambling Man a few years ago in Maidstone?
Yeah. It's a light show in itself.
Yeah, geez. I think, was it BCC or was it just him? But either way, his teeth. Yeah. I think you can see them from space. They're so bright. Sorry, were you saying? I don't know. I got into his teeth.
That's how you got into his teeth. Yeah, Glenn. Yeah, it's good that it would be Glenn's really looked after his voice since he's got healthy. If you read Glenn's autobiography, he went through the mill in the 80s, came out of it well in the 90s, and he's preserved himself so well. And in some ways, Matt, I'm kind of going, it would be nice if Glenn can go out with his voice intact, because there's nothing worse than being the self-proclaimed voice of rock, and then people start going, you're not the voice of rock, or you're no longer the voice of rock. So I think Glenn will pitch it just right to go, do you know what, I'm going to duck out. Think of Paul Rodgers. Paul Rodgers doesn't play that much live anymore. He did an album a couple of years ago, which was okay. Yeah. But any time that he's guested, if he's got up on stage, maybe with Joe Bonamassa, he's done maybe a couple of tunes, he's still got it, but he probably doesn't want to do an extensive tour. So, I wish Glenn well. I hope Black Country Communion tour. I hope we get. Wouldn't it be fabulous for either Steelhouse or Stone Dead or Made of Stone if Black Country Communion could come and headline next year? That'd be a nice swan song, wouldn't it?
It'd be great. It'd be great if there'd have to be special guests to Slayer at Stone Dead, of course. We're lobbying for them to reform and
exactly
play. What's it called? Stone Dead, rather.
Yeah.
Right.
So somebody who somebody else who has preserved their voice amazingly over the last many years, and we've been lucky enough to see. We've seen Chickenfoot. So we saw Chickenfoot a couple of times. So Sammy Hagar kicked off earlier this month the Best of All Worlds tour in America, which was 21 songs packed with Van Halen classics, Matt. So he's assembled a band. So Sammy's band, which is called The Circle, Sammy Hagar and The Circle, Jason Bonham's drumming in it, and Michael Anthony of Van Halen is in the band. But the guitar player that they've got is Joe Satriani. And a few months ago, when they got together to talk about this project, Joe came in for a lot of stick on the Howard Stern show because it didn't sound like Eddie. It sounded so much more, it just wasn't gelling yet. And all of the YouTube videos and all of the just in terms of how the shows come together, they've got a guy called Ray on keyboards and vocals who's brilliant. Sammy Hagar's in his mid-70s. I think Sammy Hagar is probably older than Glenn Hughes. I think he's maybe 75, 76. But Sammy is just sounding amazing. You know, he's doing mainly Van Halen or Van Hagar material. He has chucked in a few David Lee Roth tunes, and then Joe's getting a little showcase with Satch Boogie as one of his solo tunes. But I am hoping that that we get to see Sammy can maybe come across to the UK 2025. That would be amazing. And again, somebody whose his voice is sounding really, really well, put the work in, looking well, and that would be nice.
Yeah, it would be. It would be amazing. 76. Sammy Hagar, still going strong. His voice sounds good.
Yeah.
I don't know who this Ray is you're talking about, but I've been intrigued to see who he is.
He's Australian. Yeah, he's an Australian. I think I'm not quite sure what the connection is, Ray, but Ray's got a brilliant surname, Ray Thistlesweet.
Oh, I like that. That's a great name. That's great. Very rock and roll.
Isn't it? Hello.
Yeah.
Here's Ray Thistlesweet. And he's going to be reading.
Goes by Ray. No wonder he just goes by Ray, I suppose. Well, we live in hope. Yes, that'd be great if they came over. Maybe download, or as you say, festival dates. Who knows? I think the thing is that US circuit, and we know this from the likes of Def Leppard and Judas Priest and many others, is very, very lucrative. And of course, they can sort of fly home almost if they want to after each gig. So, well, maybe not, but you know what I mean. It's a big effort to get across the Atlantic and play the one date in London, of course, and then fly back again. So we shall see. But yeah, we live in hope. As you say, Chickenfoot came over a couple of times back in the early 2010s. It was 2011 and 13 or something. So fingers crossed for that one.
So, Matt, we come to New Rock on the Block.
And
we have
exciting.
We have a smorgasbord, cornucopia.
Wow. Oh well, wait.
Yeah, we've got 3 platters of rock goodies.
Have you had your dinner yet? Because you're talking about smorgasbords and platters.
I haven't actually. I haven't. No. I need to get my tea. Yeah, we've got 3 albums to review in this episode, and we are going to kick off with a band who are currently in the UK. And you're going to see them very, very soon, and you can talk about them in the next episode. So this band is currently on their on the Big Finish, as they're calling it. This is Mr. Big, and Mr. Big have just released, I'm hoping it's their 10th album, because they've called it 10.
Yep, 10. I'm just counting them up. 10th studio album. 10. I see. I have a problem with that. I've said this many times in the context of Extreme, who call their album, what was it, 6 or 7 or something?
Yeah.
V or 5. I mean, come on, lads. What do you call it? Like, I don't know, Last Farewell or something. I don't know, something. Yeah. But 10. Yes, 10. What did you think of it?
You know me, and I come from.
I do very well.
Know me very well.
20 odd years.
20 odd years, and you know how high regard I hold Mr. Big.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I think I know where this is going. But go on.
Fair enough. You're reading the room and the tone of my voice. There were some songs on here, Matthew, that were okay. Where I think Mr. Big, the songs weren't good enough for me in terms of what I expect. I have high expectations of Mr. Big, and there wasn't enough good songs on this track for me. There was quite a lot of it. Had a really 70s rock vibe to it. There was there's parts of it where I was thinking, this sounds like Robin Troyer. It was very classic 70s rock. And then what were you thinking? It's sounding like Rory Gallagher. There's a Brian May sort of. There was guitar sort of harmonization, which was very Brian May. It just didn't click for me, and I know Eric Martin. Eric Martin's an amazing vocal, and they've actually been really smart, and they've not pushed his voice in the mix or pushed him to sing higher. So it's quite a low register album, Matt. And I'm listening to it.
Yeah.
It's Eric's voice, but it's low register, and to me it loses that emotion of, when you think of Steve Perry and Lou Gramm, one of the reasons why they emote so well is because they're screaming at the top of their lungs, pushing their voice out, screaming and crying. And for me, Eric's vocal delivery is just safe. And so I was left wanting, Matt, of this as an album. I there's some, I'll probably not listen to it in a while. I'll come back to it and I'll maybe give it another try. But in the first couple of listens, I was disappointed. The musicianship's amazing. Paul Gilbert and Nick has sat in very well, replacing the sadly departed Pat Torpey, and it still sounds like Mr. Big, but it just didn't excite me, Matt. I'm sorry to say that, and I'm disappointed I have to say that, but it was a little bit of a letdown to me. Where are you with it?
Well, I was slightly more upbeat about it, to be honest with you. I think it's Nick DiVigilio, by the way, is the drummer that we...
I always struggle with pronouncing Nick's surname.
I'm not surprised. It's a tough name. Nick DiVigilio. Anyway, I actually quite liked it. First couple of listens, I would have tended to agree with you, to have agreed with you. And he's singing within himself, or they've kind of, as you say, kept things in a kind of lower register, lower range for him, which is, fair enough if you're of an age where you're struggling to hit the high notes. And we know that from plenty of singers that we've talked about over the years. But I think it's a grower, I would say.
Okay,
I think I persevered with it, and in the end I liked it. I've liked most of the recent stuff from Mr. Big. 2017's Defying Gravity is a really good album.
Yeah.
And I think this is in the same vein. There's no real whopping standout songs. They're all pretty much kind of on a par with each other. I do like Good Luck Trying, which is the sort of lead-off song. It's the first song on the album. And I'm used pretty good. Sunday Morning Kind of Go. It gives me the impression that he came up with the titles, then kind of reversed into the lyric. But that's quite often the way, of course. AC/DC wrote their entire Back in Black album on the same basis, essentially. But no, I quite liked it. I think Paul Gilbert, the guitarist, was quite understated. He shreds a little bit, but not, he's not taking over the songs.
Yeah.
Billy Gilbert was also a virtuoso, but on the bass guitar. Billy Gilbert, Billy Sheehan rather, is also virtuoso on the bass guitar. But he didn't kind of overplay it particularly.
Yeah.
I think it's a good, solid rock album. Quite contemporary. I felt it was quite contemporary in its feel, kind of typical early 2020s Mr. Big. Really, it's a far cry from the Lean Into It and the first few albums, of course.
Which I'm a big
still
fan
good
of.
live.
Yeah,
exactly. But they've changed with time, and fair enough. And as you said, they're on their farewell tour. I'm not quite sure why they're calling it a day, but so be it. And I've seen them recently, and I'm seeing them again very soon. So I for one, I'm looking forward to seeing them. But I'd give this album a good sort of 6.5, 7 out of 10. Nothing jumps out at you, but it's certainly a grower and a nice rounded good album as far as I'm concerned.
Good.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, you're welcome. So that brings us to, what are we doing next?
We're going to do the End Machine.
The End Machine.
You can only say that one way, can't you? You're not going to go End Machine. It's the End Machine.
The Quantum Phase. I'm no sort of soft fluffy prog person. I do like meat and potatoes rock, and this is what this is. It's quite old school. I loved it. I'm going to say right now, I absolutely love this album. it's got some very dark kind of tones to it, very dark themes to it. Just the song titles: Black Hole
I
Extinction,
know. Yeah.
Extinction. I can't even say it. Extinction. Silent Winter, Killer of the Night, Burning, and so on. Burning Man.
Killer of the Night.
But it's exactly it's good. It's got some quite interesting work from George Lynch, who's a magnificent guitarist throughout this. I mean, it's not sort of cliched stuff. Well, it is cliched up to a point because it's classic kind of 4-piece sort of classic rock, as it were. But he's come up with some interesting riffs, solos, and so on. First, let me know what the first song reminds you of, by the way. I thought it was a bit Am I Evil when it started, by the way. That kind of
here we go,
chugging sort of yeah. Am I Evil by Diamond Head.
Another,
as mentioned last no, I thought it was really good. Yeah, indeed. This is a Frontiers piece of work, isn't it? Right, this is a Frontiers album.
It certainly is, yes.
Mr. Big's album is too, isn't it?
It is indeed.
But yeah, I think they sound good. I loved it. It's a classic rock album. It ticks all the boxes as far as I'm concerned. It's got a mixture of chugging guitars and harmonized vocals. As far as I'm concerned, it's great, and it's rounded off by the fact that the singer Girish Pradhan, who we talked about,
we love Girish,
brilliant singer, brilliant.
Oh,
it's a brilliant acquisition for them. It does remind me of the old days when you would sort of see singers and guitarists kind of transfer between bands. Hopefully, Girish and the Chronicles are still going. We reviewed one of their albums. Was it last year before?
Yeah.
Their most recent album. But yeah, he's a great singer, Girish, and I think this is a great album. I think this is one of my favorite albums of the year so far. Over to you, Brian, for magnificent new album.
Do you know what? I can't disagree with you there, Matt. I loved the first two End Machine albums. And the first two End Machine albums were very much, it effectively was classic Dokken lineup. So you had George, Jeff Pilson, and Mick Brown. Right. And the singer was Robert Mason, who I love. And that first End Machine album was just stupendous. I loved it. And then when Robert left or parted ways, because I think he sings in Warrant as well. So whenever Robert stepped away and they got Girish in, I thought, what's the sound of the band going to change? And I think musically it sounds darker, heavier, but Girish just enhances it with his vocal. Dino Jalisic is one of those vocalists that we were screaming about 3 or 4 years ago with all of the YouTube stuff, and Girish is kind of he's the next guy, and the fact that both George just has a good way of picking vocalists because he's worked with Dino and he's now working with Girish, so it's and George Lynch, as you say, he just doesn't get enough credit for the guitarist, for the interesting guitar that he plays, fabulous. Yeah, he just is fabulous, and some of the soloing that he's done.
Oh God, amazing!
It is. He's just he's got such a unique tone. Quantum Phase, strong. On the first couple of listens, strong 8.5 out of 10 for me.
Yep, same here.
Yeah.
Same here.
Fabulous.
So that brings us to, finally, the new album by Canada's finest, The Commoners. This album is called Restless. And I like The Commoners. I've seen them, actually. Nice guys. I met them, saw them down in Brighton. Nice, down-to-earth guys. Very talented guys. From just outside of Toronto in Canada, one of my favourite parts of the world. I've only been there once, but it's still pretty good. What do you think of it, Brian? You go first on this one.
The lead-off track on this, the lead-off track on this album, "Devil Teasing Me," is just fantastic. with it's just got when we were talking in previous shows about the southern rock feel to some bands at the moment. The Commoners have got that swagger. They have that, and I love the quote, which is this is from their social media, where they say, "It's a sound tapped from the oaken belly of a whiskey barrel." It's just got that swagger, southern rock. So the opening track sets it up well. "Shake You Off." I can't help thinking about Taylor Swift when I hear that song title, but thankfully "Shake You Off" is a good rockin' tune. It's just such a strong album. Singer, fantastic vocalist. And I do like whenever you've got that southern rock, Rolling Stones kind of vibe to a band, it's so lovely when you've got a piano in the mix as well too. The first 4 tracks off the album, even the title track itself, Matt, Restless, it's just such a good, consistent album. You get through to it's a 10 track album. You get through to Too Soon to Know You, All That We Have. They're all strong tracks. So I was really, really surprised with the strength of this album. I know you've seen them and you're a big fan of them. I kind of came to it with just like I'll give it a listen and just listen to it and just see get a feel for it. I thought it was fantastic. Really, really mature piece of work.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it is a great album. It's one of my favorite albums of the year so far. It's, as you say, I think it benefits from the Hammond organ and the backing vocals.
Yeah.
Very much in the vein of Black Crowes, I would suggest, and they are. They seem to influence everyone. The Black Crowes, certainly this new kind of these new up and coming bands like the Karma Effect and these Wicked Rivers and Dirty Honey and Robert John the Wreck and so on. They seem to all kind of have their starting point. They pivot around the Black Crowes, who are, of course, an amazing band in their own right. I mean, I think you've covered it, really. I think Restless, the title track, is one of my favourite songs of the year. It is an absolute modern classic, the song Restless, which is, as I say, the title track of the album. I would urge everyone to go and listen to it, or go and see the Commoners. They're out in the UK at the moment, playing a couple of festivals, and I shall see them again at those festivals. And I mean, I don't know, would you call them Americana or North Americana, or Canada-rama, maybe?
Canuck rock.
Yes, that'll do us. But yeah, great album. And I think you said it all, really. It's great songs, great playing, magnificent singer. Nice guys, as I say. They're top lads when you meet them.
Yeah.
Really kind of modest, down to earth. And I think that on the strength of this album, they're destined for big things. At least I hope so.
Yeah.
So check out the album Restless by the Commoners.
Ultimately, we kick off with the
Ultimately, I see what we did there.
Ultimately, let us unmask. Oh, no. So we will kick off the U's with, to me, the biggest musical export out of Ireland ever, which is U2. U2 just go from strength to strength. You know, when you look at any band that can make Joshua Tree. You know, Joshua Tree to me is, and then follow that up with an album which is actually better than Joshua Tree in my opinion, in Achtung Baby. U2 are just, for me, you've got to start with them, Matt. I've been fortunate that I've seen U2 a few times, and I remember when Q Magazine, do you remember the sadly missed Q Magazine? I remember they did an article once of the top 10 tours that we all should have gone to, and I went to only one show of the top 10, and that was U2's Zooropa tour, which was supporting Achtung Baby. So yeah, got to start with U2, Matt. Where are you on U2?
Well, I would agree about the Joshua Tree. I mean, one of my favorite albums, just almost perfection. No weak songs on the album. Spawned loads of singles, of course, with and without you, and where the streets have no name, and so on. Yeah, I've seen them a few times as well. Actually, I saw that Joshua Tree tour uh, back in 1987. It was the weekend between I went to university. Not many people give me credit for that. But I went to Hatfield Poly, which became the University of Hertfordshire. I went. I went to see the Joshua Tree tour at Wembley Stadium, the middle weekend of my finals. So obviously I had my priorities right. Everyone else was revising, and I was partying at Wembley Stadium. But yeah, magnificent band. Same four members, of course.
Yeah.
As kicked off in 1976, coming up to their 50th anniversary. Can't believe it. 50 years of U2 almost. Yeah, fantastic. Fantastic. I haven't bought an album of theirs for a while, actually, but we'll probably revisit the Joshua Tree on the strength of this discussion.
Let's go up above the border then.
Yes. Yes, let's.
And go to the Undertones, Matthew, who for many, and John Peel in particular, thought that the Teenage Kicks was the ultimate pop single. And you and me have played in cover bands for more years than we can mention. And I have to say, when I started playing in any of the bands, when I was starting to play guitar at 16, the one song that you played it was Teenage Kicks. You write a passage when you started the band is you had to play Teenage Kicks.
Yeah, agreed. It's an absolute classic, isn't it? It's a very simple song, simple lyrics, teenage dreams, so hard to beat, etc. One of my favourite songs of theirs is "My Perfect Cousin."
It's fabulous.
Of course.
Yes, yeah,
very good. Still going strong. No Fergal Sharkey with them anymore. He's too busy campaigning for cleaner rivers. God bless him. But yeah, you can still see the undertones. I don't know where you'd see them, but probably on the nostalgia circuit. Formed in 1974.
You're kidding?
I can't believe that. Yeah. Their purple patch was late 70s into the early 80s. Yeah, still, as I say, still going strong. Which can't be said of another band that we have touched upon once or twice on the podcast. And that band is UFO. And we've discussed many times. I don't think we need to go there, but I'm not alone in thinking that Strangers in the Night from 1979 is the... Have I said this before? Seems to ring a bell. That Strangers in the Night is the greatest live album ever.
Exactly.
Culled from many gigs on the Obsession Tour, 1978, just before Michael Schenker left. In fact, we were talking about Thin Lizzy last time, and you said there were three phases of Thin Lizzy: before, during, and after Gary Moore. Well, it's a bit like that with UFO, actually. Before Michael Schenker joined in 1973, I think it was 17 at the time, joined from the Scorpions. They were more of a space rock band. And Bernie Marsden, the aforementioned Bernie Marsden, passed through their ranks briefly. He didn't enjoy his time with them. If you listen or read his autobiography, Michael Schenker joined. That was their purple patch in the mid to late 70s with albums like Fawcett and Lights Out and Phenomenon and Obsession, and as I say, Stranger in the Night. And then he left, and yeah, I mean, they were still very well respected in the early 80s, with Paul Chapman on guitar, Tonka Chapman, and then over the recent years with Andy Parker, Phil Mogg, and Vinnie Moore, and Paul Raymond, the late great Paul Raymond, and kind of recaptured some of the vibe of that 70s era. They did reform with Schenker in the early 90s. I missed out on that gig. Our friend Kelvin is very happy to remind me that he saw that classic Strangers in the Night lineup, and I didn't. Yeah, so that was UFO. Where do you want to go next, Brian?
You know the way when you look at the covers of CDs, for those of us who still buy product, buy either vinyl or CDs, you look at the back of this would be great, wouldn't it, Matt? That'd be a good pub quiz question. Whose name is most? If you were to look at the Encyclopedia of Music, or which person's name has come up the most on the back of albums? So you would be probably the first one you come to mind would be Bob Clearmountain. It was always
Martin Birch.
Yes, Martin Birch. Bob Ludwig. There was somebody mastered by Bob Ludwig, and somebody else who would have been up there as somebody who was name checked in the most albums is somebody called Mr. Udo.
Ah, yes.
So Mr. Udo, if you look at any live album that's recorded in Japan, now a lot of the, as you say, Budokan, we've talked about Mr. Big. You talk about any of the world's greatest artists, pound to a penny, that the Japanese concert promoter Mr. Udo would have been involved in the promotion of those shows. He was very, very close with the likes of David Bowie, Eric Clapton in particular. So there's one just a little bit left field, Matt. Mr. Udo.
I like it. Yes, indeed. The often mentioned, as you say, by many bands who've toured Japan. I'm going to go in a similar vein, actually, to UDO. One of our listeners, Clyde. Hello, Clyde Hunt. From Limavady.
Hey.
That's a coincidence, isn't it? Coincidence, isn't it, bro? You're from Limavady, aren't you?
Yeah.
Any relation?
No.
He mentioned UDO.
Yes.
Fronted by Udo Dirkschneider. That is, it feels so good to say that. It's such a brilliant name. Udo Dirkschneider, who I first saw back in 1981 with Accept.
Yeah.
And then he went on to form UDO or Udio. Must be UDO, I guess. Had more members than I've had hot dinners. I'm counting them now, and there's loads of them. There must be 25 members they've had in UDO over the years. I don't know much about them. I might look into them. I remember he was one of those kind of diminutive sort of powerhouse vocalists, a bit like Angry Anderson from Rose Tattoo. But yes, thanks, Clyde, for mentioning UDO, fronted by the great Udo Dirkschneider. There you go. I enjoy saying that. What else you got for us, Bri?
Luke Morley put a band together with Pete Shoulder, who is a singer from the northeast of England. And that band was called The Union. And I have to say, I was lucky enough to see The Union. Chris Childs from Thunder, who played bass in Thunder. And I was lucky enough to see The Union supported Whitesnake about 2010 on the back of their second album. But they released 3 albums. I would probably check out the self-titled album, The Union, and then actually the second album, Siren Songs, in 2011 is fantastic. It's a great project, as they call things these days. And Thunder obviously got back together, which is great for Thunder fans. But I have to say, I had hoped that The Union might have stuck together and we might have seen them more, because the 3 albums that Luke put together with Pete Shoulder, and Pete Shoulder's an amazing vocalist. Really, he's in that he is in that Paul Rogers, that lovely, just slightly raspy, great singer. I thought, brilliant. So The Union is a band I would put forward and put something on the playlist, Matt.
Good shout, and good shout about Pete Shoulder, who did actually join Thunder very briefly when Ben Matthews was having treatment for cancer about 10, 11, 12 years ago. But yeah, brilliant musician, guitarist, keyboards, and good band. I saw them with Lizzie. I saw them with Whitesnake on that tour as well. Yeah. And they also played at the first High Voltage Festival, I think, or maybe the second one. Do you remember? I don't remember them there particularly, but
I don't remember them either.
Maybe I was having a sit down somewhere. But anyway, yes, The Union. Good shout. In the interest of time, we must mention Uriah Heep, of course, a British institution.
Yes.
Still going strong. Doing the rounds still, and saw them recently with Judas Priest and Saxon, and fronted now by Bernie Shaw, the latest in a long line of singers. Still with Mick Box on guitar. They've been going since the late 60s, I think, Uriah Heep, in some way, shape or form. So shout out to Uriah Heep. Ugly Kid Joe I think a lot of people remember them from the early 90s. They were on the soundtrack, I think, to the first, wait, or maybe the second Wayne's
I
World
think you're right. Yeah, yeah,
movie.
yeah.
Yeah.
Everything about you,
Did some
or
great. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, classic kind of fun. Listen to the lyrics. It's a fun rock song. In fact, I'm seeing them soon. I don't know where, I forget where I'm seeing them, but I think they're on Steelhouse. Full review coming up. Notable other mentions. We should mention the likes of the Unforgettable Fire album from
yes,
U2.
yeah, good show.
Mentioned them earlier. Under Pressure by Queen and David Bowie. Remember that song, Bri?
I do indeed. A bit of an accident where Queen and David Bowie just happened to be in the same studio. I think it might have been they were in Montreux, and David and Freddie got very, very competitive about the lyrics, and they wrote the song very collaboratively, and then I think Bowie changed a few things, and Freddie was like up on his game. So it was a very, very, very charged recording environment when you speak to Brian, particularly Brian May and Roger Taylor about it, and over the years. I know recently that Brian May has kind of come out and said, I would have preferred it if it had been a bit more rocked up.
Yeah, indeed. Couple of albums to mention: Under Wraps by Jethro Tull from 1984, I think. I saw them on that tour. First time I saw Tull. The second greatest live album ever, also from 1979, Unleashed in the East by the mighty Judas Priest. What a great album. Magnificent stuff. A couple of old songs, old but classic. Under My Thumb by the Stones, Up Around the Bend by Creedence Clearwater Revival, also covered by Thunder, and also I think when they played with Pete Shorter on an album called Live at the Brooklyn Bowl, I think it's called, from memory. You wanted to mention Under the Bridge, of course. That talking of classics, I mean, wow, Under the Bridge by the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Absolutely,
what a song!
Yeah. A few notable mentions from me. I'm going to give a shout out to Utopia. So Utopia are an American rock band. They're a band, but fundamentally it's Todd Rundgren's Utopia, and we've talked about Todd Rundgren as a producer of Bad Out of Hell and what he's done, but they had a top 40 hit single with Set Me Free in 1980. Kazim Sultan, who's the bass player, amazing bass player. He's played with everybody. He in the latter Meatloaf band, Kazim was the musical director for Meatloaf. So Utopia were just amazing band, and Todd Rundgren's just a genius. Also, shout out for Van Halen's Unchained, with good old, I think it was Ted Templeman. Give us a break, Dave, and one break coming right up. It's just off the cuff things which are now classic. And the final one from me, Matt, on the U's would be probably one of the most talked about. It would have been brilliant to have had MTV in the early 80s in America, Matt, whenever everybody sat down at that time, 8 o'clock, whenever it was, and you had the unmasking of Kiss.
Oh, yeah.
And there was a whole MTV special, and they had, they were all sitting there, and they were, with his purr, sort of like here was Gene Simmons with his makeup on, and then they sort of like moved it to what Gene would look like. And I think everybody was like, wow, at the time. But then when you watch it on YouTube, 40 years later, you go, really?
yeah. It's a little bit hard to watch, isn't it?
It is.
Yes, I remember that very well, actually. Yes, it was quite something in the pages of Kerrang back in the day. Kiss had taken their makeup off because for years, and this is covered in Paul Stanley's autobiography we talked about, for years, of course, they wouldn't allow themselves to be photographed or generally seen in public without it. Good stuff. That was the letter U. Next time, V. What will we talk about then, Bri? I wonder. But for now,
Van der Graaf generator.
indeed. Yes, indeed. Well, more of that next time. So, Brian, that brings us to everyone's favourite part of the podcast, of course. We've said that many times.
Hidden Gem Time.
Thank you, Lola. Sounding great as always. So, what you got for us, Brian?
I have an epic, grandiose album for this episode, Matt. I have swallowed a thesaurus for this episode. I am going to go with the last album. This is from a Danish band, and the band are called Boys from Heaven. They're a progressive sort of pop rock band based from Denmark, and 7-piece band. And when I first listened to their third album, so the album I'm recommending as a hidden gem is their 2023 album called The Descendant. It just sounds like modern day Toto. It's got that real 80s feel to it, and just the polish of the production, which I'm a sucker for. A track to put on the playlist as well too is Last Time. That's my favorite track on the album. So my hidden gem for this episode is Boys from Heaven, and the album is called The Descendant. What about you?
Very good. Very good. Well, I mentioned Jethro Tull earlier, and I've been going through a Jethro Tull phase recently, and I would like to call out for my hidden gem another live album. Actually, I've got a thing about live albums. I always have had, and this is a recent reissue of the 1978 live Bursting Out by Jethro Tull, which was recorded in Montreux in Switzerland, with introduction by Claude Nobbs, or Funky Claude, as he was known as in Smoke on the Water. Yeah, I love this album. I mean, it's Jethro Tull at their finest, and they were huge in America. Well, this is, as I say, recorded in Montreux, but the accompanying CD is also live in Madison Square Garden, and the audience is just going crazy for a band fronted by a bearded bloke standing on one leg, playing the flute. But the songs are quintessentially English, and I think that obviously went across very well in the mid '70s in the US. So yeah, my hidden gem, not so hidden, is Live Bursting Out by Jethro Tull. There you go, and that was it. Another one done. Another one bites dust. But we weren't under pressure, were we, Brian?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Never under pressure. It's been a pleasure, though. It's been great. Episode 68. Did you enjoy that?
I did indeed. We had a nice. I feel we had a nice Irish theme that was running through the whole show, which was lovely.
Yeah, I enjoy that because I am 1/64th Irish, as you very well know. So yeah, I appreciate that as almost a countryman of yours. So we will see everyone next time. Please subscribe on YouTube. We're also on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We are, of course, every third Tuesday on Scotland Rocks Radio. So thanks for having us on there, guys. Brian, you want to say hello to your mum? You want to say hello to Clyde Hunt again from Limavady? Everyone in Limavady knows you, I suppose,
exactly,
don't you?
Yeah.
Right. Thanks for listening, everyone.
All right. Take care.
Goes Bad Pod, we salute you, is a Made in Rogers production.